What's it like to live with a Supernote for 5 years? Let's get into it and find out. Hey everybody, it's Ed. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, what I'm going to do is talk with you a little bit about my 5-year journey with the Supernote platform. So we're going to talk about the 3 devices that I have. We're going to talk about how I use them, and we're going to talk about what makes them unique and what might be the best device for you. So let's go ahead and jump on over and take a look. All right, everyone. So here we are with all 3 Supernote devices. So while these are powering up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through them in order of when I received them. So I have them here by size, just so it's a little bit clear of what the differences are. But I want to talk about each one of them individually first. And I wrote a whole blog article on this that will be linked below in the description, and it's been extremely popular. I mean, there have been thousands of views on it, and I'm really happy with that. And I also did a live stream that I will tag as well. But let's take a look at what some of these have to offer. So this is the original A5X. Now the A5X, and you'll see I have my daily organizer on there. I've been testing that out with the new academic version. I'm actually thinking about using that for that. So shout out to Voya for making a really cool planner. But this is the A5X. And of course, the A5X was not the original Supernote. The original Supernotes actually ran on Linux, very similar to the Remarkable platform. And what's nice about this is it is an all plastic design. And I really like how they've done that. And you'll notice a lot of similarities between this and the Manta when we get there. But here is why I think this was such a good design. This device here is over 5 years old. I got this May 4th, 2021. So just as we were coming out of the biggest push of the COVID pandemic, and I was still leading in a library, and I absolutely love this device. And you'll see it's in pretty good shape. There are a few scuff marks. When I show you the case, you'll see why that's there, because that's where the pen loop is. But for the most part, it's very clean. It's still held up extremely well. It's an all plastic design. It has a Mobius screen on it, so the screen is plastic as well. Again, something similar to the Manta, but just such a nice design. Very minimalist. And I just fell in love with it. And the only modification that I've done to it is put the Feel Right 2 on it. And primarily that was because I fell in love with the Feel Right 2 film when I got the Nomad. But let's go ahead. I mean, just take a look at that device. You'll see a few air bubbles. Even though I had it professionally installed, there were a couple, but there weren't any on the screen. And since they weren't on the screen, they didn't bother me too much. They don't really get in my way when I write or anything like that. It's just around these edges that there's an occasional issue. So that is the A5X. That's what started it all. I had seen the Remarkable 2. I thought it was really cool. I tried it out. I kind of liked it. And I had those 2 devices in my cart, I kid you not, for probably 2 weeks before I pulled the trigger and actually bought this one. And I couldn't be happier with that choice. Absolutely love it. Then Supernote was kind enough to send me the Crystal Nomad. Now, this is actually the second one because this came as the Crystal Clear Thinking Edition. And they were kind enough to send me one and let me review that whole bundle, which is a great deal if you really are into Supernote, like the tin that it comes in, that crystal lammy. And you'll see on the back here what makes this device so unique. And that's they first introduced modularity. Now, I haven't put an SD card in this one yet because I moved it to the Manta out of the other one that I had, which Trey now has, and he daily drives that. He never leaves without it to work. But one thing about the Nomad, and one reason that it was such an innovation, and I really mean that word when I say it about these devices, they were an innovation. Not only with some of the tools and software features and everything on the original A5X, but then they upped that by putting these dual sliders on the Nomad, and this whole device is completely symmetrical. So no matter how you turn it, you're good to go. But the dual sliders are huge. And that's primarily, I think, the biggest reason that I've gone with the Manta instead of the original primarily because I got so used to that dual slider and how well it works and how much it really enhances my productivity. But this is just a beautiful device. And you can really see if you look here, this is where they moved the power port to the top. And that was such a brilliant move because not that I mean, this was in my bag for several weeks and I opened it up and it was 86% when I powered it on. But you can, if you did need to power it, then you don't have a cord down here. On the original A5X, the power port was here on the bottom. So that's, something that I think was really needed, a really good improvement. And I'm not surprised that they won a design award for this device. And quite frankly, the white version is very nice as well. And its cover is much easier to remove because it kind of slides out of place. This one, it takes a bit to get it off of there. You can see all of these screws have to be removed. I did notice on this one, which is different than the one that I had originally, that they put a screw bracket here on the inside to hold the power button in place. Originally, on the one I had, if I removed this cover, it was very tricky to get the power button back in place. So just kind of a nice thing that looks like they changed. Then we get to the one, and this is the only one that currently has a pin on it because they did some real changes here with the Manta. Now, the Manta aesthetically is very similar to the Nomad. It's not symmetrical, so you do have more of a chin here on the bottom, but you could turn this device and use it the other way if you're a lefty. So it still works both ways. It would just look a little bit different if you did it this way because you'd have that larger chin on the top. One nice thing about both of these is they have an accelerometer, so they do auto rotate, which is nice to have, but they added a manual rotation feature here. And when we get to talking about kind of the features and some of the way they backwards design everything to make sure that you're not losing a ton of features. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But here you see that dual slider. Absolutely love the dual sliders. You see the same filing system. This one as well is modular. Now you will see it is a little bit darker around the edges and I just need to clean it. Quite frankly, I use this device every single day, so it's gonna have something get on it, but it's an absolutely stunning device. And again, you can pull this back off and you'll be able to see all of the inner workings and upgrade that when the new system on chip comes out or anything like that. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show you those first, just kind of as they were without anything. And again, if you look at this, got a little bit grayer screen around the border, but look how white this still is. I mean, a 5-year-old device right next to the Nomad. And to me, it just looks stunning and it's really held up well. Now I do want to show the cases. So let's go ahead and start again with the A5X. So here is the A5X case that came with it. And you'll see this one obviously too. I use these things. So these aren't things that just sit in a drawer and don't get used. I even pull the A5X out a lot and I'm using it now mostly as a dedicated typewriting device for a Quirky writer. So just a really nice design, really nice case. They did have to send me a new one because originally they didn't have these stitched in, but you can see that really nice stitching now. And this case is probably 4 years old. Well, maybe 4.5, because I had that problem early on and they just sent me out a new case immediately. But one thing I like about this, let me put it here, is this mechanical component to it. So you see this rail here, and this is something they did change with both of the other devices. But what's nice about it is when you go to slot that in, you just push it down, you hear that click, and now your case is right there and good to go. Now, this is much heavier than either of these other two, but it is a very well-built device. And then you have your pin loop right there. It doesn't get in the way. You easily open it and it wakes everything up. So pretty cool. So let's take a look. We'll go ahead and slide this one over out of the way for a minute. And let's take a look at the Nomad. Now, the Nomad, they went a completely different direction here. They introduced magnets for the first time, and they did them in a way that made sure, if you look at the placement here and we go here, there's no way those magnets are going to interfere with the screen. A lot of time on EMR devices, you're going to have interference with the screen. A really cool feature that they added, and the case does the same thing. So here's your case, and what's really nice about it is they are very strong. So that clipped right in with no issue at all. And of course, this is the crystal clear thinking set. So you'll see here it's co-branded with Lamy. This is the crystal clear Lamy, which is absolutely fabulous. And then it still has that faux leather and that pin loop. So pretty cool with the way that those two devices share some symmetry as far as the way the case is laid out, but also trying to push the envelope and do something different with the magnetic attachments. Pretty neat. Then you get to the Manta, and on the Manta, they were trying to solve, I think, several problems. One, they didn't want to have an issue with magnets that would add weight to the device. And I don't know all the thinking because I'm not a design engineer, so it's not really my thing. But I can see why they went with the half folio. And I know some people don't like the half folio. I get it. I completely understand it. But at the same time, I really do like it because I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. Number one, they added these anti-skid feet on the bottom, so you can use this device without a folio. I don't like that they left this exposed the way they did, because if you do use it without a folio, this isn't going to cover. And I said that in my original unboxing. You could get dust in here, dirt in here, your pogo pins are here, they could get damaged. But I'm going to use the half folio because I like it, and it really does work well. All I have to do is line this up and snap. It's right on. It's that easy. And pulling it off is not hard either. So if I take this and I flip it, and you can put it down on the table, it's not going to hurt it. It's a plastic screen. And you pull down. You can also do it on your lap. It's very easy, very quick. Then you get all of that convenience of being able to take it easily on and off. Pinstar has something similar that uses magnets, but I really like this design. I like the fact that it's flush with the device. I like when you open it up and turn it over, it wakes up the screen. There is this tiny bit of separation here, but I don't find that it bothers me much. And that's only because these have a little bit of give in them, and most of your connection point is here in the middle. This is the Lamy Twin Safari with this one, primarily because I accidentally stretched out my loop. I need to put on one of the other ones so that I can get that taken care of and get my heart of metal back, because the heart of metal is obviously my favorite. It has been for a long time. And now I don't think they're all going to fit on the screen. So we'll take a look at each of them individually, and also we will kind of look at some of the things that have changed and some of the things that haven't changed. So let's go ahead and start with the A5X. And what I have done just for this video, because I had left these on different versions of the software, primarily because I always like to have redundancy, but I'm comfortable enough with the plugin system. I'm comfortable enough with a lot of the things that are being done in this current beta that I think we're good. Now, I have that comfort level. I would not suggest everyone do that, because if you're not comfortable with it, it could really cause an issue and really have you get upset if something went south. I'm comfortable with it. I've got enough redundancy and files backed up that I'm not too concerned. But let's take a look really quickly at the device. And I do have my trusty, or at least one of my trusty heart of metal pins here. And you'll see it's back when they inscribed them. So it's got that on there. Absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and just go into a note. Now this, you can see it's still pretty snappy, and this does sync with all of my other devices. So I let that sync run in the background. I've got auto sync turned off right now just because I was installing all the updates and I didn't want to accidentally have something cross. But all of the things that I have put on my other devices are on this device. So let's just go into personal. Let's go into social media. Let's go into, let's see here, testing environment, and then beta testing. And what you're going to see here is plugin test note. So I have a plugin test note, and it's probably going to take it a minute to open. I mean, it is a little bit slower of a device, but not by much. I want to be very clear. This device has held up so well that I'm very happy to use it. And you can see here I have plugins. Now I haven't installed them here yet, so let's go ahead and install one. And it'll come straight over because of the fact that I have all of my plugins on my other devices in my plugins folder. So let's do one that's really easy. Let's do insert image, and we'll go ahead and have that one first, and we'll install it. It's going to go ahead and run that installation. And again, you're looking at a 6-year-old device as far as when it was released, 5 years old since I've owned it. So now we'll go ahead and go out. We're here. Now, one thing you remember, there is no dual slider here, so everything is going to be a little different. Not a ton of stuff, though. But let's go ahead and we will insert an image. So we click on our plugin here. We go to insert image. It's going to pop up. We'll go into My Style. We'll go into Photos. And then we will pull up my family photo that I use for a home screen here. You can crop it, you can insert the original. We'll just insert original, and there it is. And now you can move it around. It's a little bit more sluggish than on the Nomad or on the Manta, but still does a really good job of moving that around. And it does a refresh. And again, when we get to the Manta on this, you'll see that it moves around a lot faster. But it does do and then what's really neat about this is you can change your pen type if you want. So let's go ahead and we'll go with the ink pen. There we go. We'll go with the ink pen and we'll change it to white. And what's neat is when you put in an image on this plugin, you can say, hello. And you can actually write over the image and remove the pixels with the white pen. It's just a neat thing that I found that I thought was kind of cool. But, not for everybody. I will say that it does look like some of the contrast is a little bit brightened by the lights that I have. So just remember that what I see here looks a little bit different than what you're seeing on camera. But it's really that easy. And then if I go over here, of course, the big thing about this particular device is you have all of these different features. This is the same no matter whether it's this device, the Nomad, or the Manta. You can have more apps here if you want to. You can install those. Now, this is Android 8.1, so you are limited in the apps you can install. And the one big feature that is a trade-off is the fact that it does have Kindle, but you can no longer download books on the Kindle because Kindle ended support for Android 8. So you're not going to be able to do that. It may not even load. I haven't tried it recently because I've been using the other devices. Well, it does load, so it is there. So yeah, so the store still loads. You actually couldn't buy from the store to begin with, but it looks like, I think you just may not be able to update. Let me see if this opens. This is the book that I'm currently reading. And again, this is a little bit darker, and it did. So obviously, it does still work. You can't update it any further. So, and let me pull this up so you can see the screen a little bit better. And it really, look at that text on a 5-year-old device. It really does a good job of rendering the text and just absolutely love it. So let's go into our last open document here. And this is, of course, going to be MDO. And the nice thing is, if you don't like the contrast you see here, you can always change that by going into the contrast settings. And on MDO specifically, I noticed that the default settings on the Supernote, any of them, washed it out because their default contrast is all the way to 1. And you'll notice all that shading went away. However, if I go to the middle, all of the shading and all of the different components are back. So just something to think about. A lot of times there's a little bit, I don't want to say confusion, but it's just a little bit different in the way it works because their default point for contrast is very, very low versus some that turn that up or bump that up by default. All right, so let's go ahead and jump on over and look at the Nomad for a little bit. Now we are in the Nomad, and we'll get rid of my Heart of Metal pen. although I love it. And I absolutely love this pen as well, though. This Lamy collaboration is really, really good. I know there's a lot of speculation that they're working on one with a button, and I hope that is coming soon for people who want that. I don't find that I need it as much, so I don't worry about that as much. So let's go ahead and we'll do the same thing here. We'll go to personal, we'll go to social media, and we'll go to testing environment, and then we will go to beta testing. So if we go into plugin test note, you should see the image pop in from the A5X. And it may take it a minute here to load. Remember, this is a beta, so it's not going to be perfect. But now what we'll do is let me pull this up here. And you can see, look how much crisper that image is than it was on the other one. And of course, right now I've got a template. Let me go to a white template. Maybe that'll make it a little easier to see. I mean, look how crisp that is. I think it looks absolutely stunning. And of course, I can add, if I wanted to go here and let's say we go back and we want to change this pen to white and say I wanted to say family. And now that's there. Kind of neat. Just a really cool thing to be able to use. And of course, this has the dual sliders. So we'll go ahead and advance our page. And the cool thing about the dual sliders, you can do undo and redo, but you can also, if you hold down here and start to go up, it's going to pull up your page view. And then you can take this slider and go up and down your pages, or you can use this to navigate your pages. And you can actually even use the slider to move the pages. So just a lot of really nice touches that Supernote adds to keep you productive, keep you moving. But let's go ahead and do a different plugin here on the Nomad. So we'll go ahead and we will install. So let's add a plugin. Of course, everybody knows about stickers, but let's go ahead and add a different one. And let's see here, the dictionary plugin. Somebody asked me to talk a little bit more about the dictionary plugin. They said, why would you want that in your handwritten notes? And I actually found a use case for this. So let's put that in here. And let's say that somebody puts a term up while you're in a meeting and you're taking notes and you don't know what that term is, but you write it down really quickly and then you want to revisit that later. So maybe you've taken a note off of a PowerPoint presentation or something else and you want to be able to define that. So let's go ahead and write authentic. Let's go ahead and lasso that. We will go to our plugins and we will go to lookup. And this does take a minute. Yep, and it got authentic and it gave us the dictionary definition of that. Really cool. Really great feature. Again, I don't think you would use it all the time, but when you did need it, if someone was going through a technical presentation and you're taking notes furiously and you get that down and you're like, what does that word mean? I don't want to have to go look it up. You would have a really nice way to be able to do that. But the even cooler part of that is if you go into a book. So here we are with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We will go ahead and get to a page with some text on it. So let's go ahead and show you how this works in this component. You have to get the selection tool, but once you do, let's say we wanted to know what a millimeter is. Most of us probably know that, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. So here you see the lookup tool. And you go ahead and just press on the lookup tool, and it's going to tell you what a millimeter is. It's something the Supernote users have been asking for a long time, is a dictionary. And with the new plugin system that will be coming out of beta at some point, hopefully fairly soon, somebody already created this. They came in, they used that, and it's system-wide. So it's built into the UI. It's not something that is an add-on, really. I mean, it is, but it's built into the toolbar. It's built into the site of selection. And that's something nobody else really does. You can always bring in an extra app. You can always sideload an extra app, but it's just not the same as being built into the user interface. So really promising stuff. And again, all of your same features. Your toolbar looks the same. Now there's different things on the toolbar. That is something someone's mentioned that I think could be improved, is this idea of having your quick access be able to sync. The issue for me there is I don't use this device for the same purpose as I use the A5X or the Manta. So for me, that wouldn't be as useful. I'm going to be doing different things on this device. I do a lot of reading on this device because of the screen clarity, because of the way the text looks and the brightness of the screen. It's just a really nice piece of tech to be able to have that's super portable. I think the Manta and the A5X are plenty portable for me, but this really drives that piece home. Manta. And last, we are going to look at the Manta. And we'll do a little comparison real quick between this and the A5X just to show the difference in the look of the screen. But for the most part, I could use either one of these. If this was broken tomorrow, I don't know if I would go out and buy a new Manta because I have the A5X and 99% of what I do. And now that I see my Kindle app, at least for now, is still working, even with my latest book that was purchased and sent to, until that app breaks, it's still very, very useful on the device. That being said, let's go back. There's Authentic that we had. There's the family photo that we had. I have a lot more plugins on this one that are already built in. There's a new mind map plugin, which is kind of cool. There's a select all that allows you to select all of the text on a page. There's the folder shortcuts. There is just a lot of stuff going on. The shapes, and shapes has been refined quite a bit. So let's go ahead and do a shape. So you can have favorites, or you can have basic shapes, arrows, flowcharts, decorative. They've really done a lot with this already, and it's really, really cool. But so let's go ahead and we'll go into basic shapes. So we'll go to shapes. We will go ahead and leave it black. We'll make it this here, leave it as an extra large line. And then we will, what you don't want to do is hit the X. If you hit the X, it's a cancel button. If you hit just outside, now you have it. And what's cool is this can be a link. You don't need to do snap shapes, but you can delete it. You can make it a heading. You could actually fool with this a little bit and then turn it into a sticker. But it does a lot of different things. So now let's go ahead. We can make it bigger. And one thing you'll notice on this versus the A5X, I mean, just look how fast that moves. And then it does that fast refresh. And if you just look how fast that ink moves, it's pretty cool in the way that these things work. But then, of course, you can write on it, you can write over it, you can write through it, and then you can circle all of that and then move all of that around if you would like and do whatever you want to with it. So pretty cool. So I did have a user ask me, because I put an announcement out there and I said, what would you like to see? And here's what the one response that I got on that one. How do you daily drive it? What does a typical day look like? And I'll tell you, and it's really not that complex. It's very much in line with what I'm doing. And so, for example, if you go into my calendar, and you'll see here, we've got a bunch of different things going on. Dots are where there are events scheduled. Now, I'm not going to show that because this is my work calendar. As a matter of fact, let me switch over to the A5X, or let me pull the A5X in here, and we'll put these side by side, and I'll switch to the Heart of Metal pen. Now, you will see that this does have a brighter screen, and it does have more contrast. Now, one thing when I open up the calendar over here is it is not going to have anything that's handwritten. So again, they're working on a revamp of the calendar, but it's a work in progress. So the settings don't completely transfer. As far as syncing, all of that's there. You'll see all of my dots are there for, you can tell I got a lot of stuff going on through the week. But again, you can always write on the monthly, and the erase is the same doing that. You can also write on the weekly. Now, one thing to be aware of is that it does not transfer over from the weekly to the monthly for anything you write. So you would have to duplicate that. And on the daily, you'd be able to see or create a new event by just pressing. The first thing that I would do, I would look at all of my events and whatever events I have coming up. So whatever meetings I have for that day, I do this first thing in the morning. I would come over here, and I wouldn't do it from here. I would actually go to the folder where they belong, but you could do it directly from here. And then I could go ahead and say, let's just do meeting 1. So let's get into the writing. There it is, meeting 1, say create. So now I'm going to have meeting 1 there. So when I go back out, it's going to take me right back to the calendar. And what you'll see here is going to be meeting 1 note. And then I can go over here on the A5X and I can say, let's go ahead and do meeting 2. And there's meeting 2. There it is. So they're both there. A lot of the times it will automatically go to Google and then Google will push it out because my Google Calendar is tied here. So that's what I would do first. So we've already synced. That's still syncing. And usually you're never going to be doing what I'm doing right now, which is having 2 devices open at the same time and manually syncing them across each other. At least I hope you wouldn't. I wouldn't. I would think that would be crazy, at least for me. One thing while we're waiting on this to sync is you can really see the difference in real estate here. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if we put these right about the same height, you can really see the screen real estate that you get with this bigger screen and also the 300 ppi. So let's look at that real quick. Let's go ahead and look at the rendering here and then look at the rendering over here on the A5X. It's just a little bit sharper on the Manta. I mean, overall, I think they're both phenomenal. Okay, so sync is complete. So we'll go ahead and sync over here. And the nice thing about at least the calendar portion of this, that syncs really quickly. The files take a little bit longer and they do that in the background. But what you will see here in a minute, once these sync across, is the meeting note 1 and 2 will both show up here as recently created notes. And it's always important to remember to create your notes day up. And I know that seems like a headache, and it is a little bit. I would love to see them have both created and recently accessed, but they only seem to be able to do one or the other right now. And I'm hoping in the newest update for the calendar, when they get there, they'll have that. And there you go. I had to sync the calendar one more time just to get it to recognize both nodes. So let's see if we can do that here as well. Since it is still syncing, it may not work on this one. I probably synced them in the wrong order, but that's a me problem, not a Supernote problem. Nope, and there it is. Again, remember, sometimes it's user error and it's not the device's fault. So that's what I would do. I would actually create my meetings from within the file structure instead of doing it this way. And then when I came to my calendar, they'd already be there. So I know what my events are. Usually I'll look at my computer for that right away and write them down and create all of my meetings. They're all ready to go. And then throughout the day, what's going to happen is I can see my calendar here. It's time for meeting 1. I'm going to go ahead and go into meeting 1 and I'm going to have that meeting. Now, when I set up meeting 1 initially, I'm going to also create my header, which is meeting 1. Now, I could do this and convert it to text and then center it, which is what I tend to do most often, or I can just create this as a header. And I'm done. And that is right in my table of contents. It's ready to go. I don't have to worry about anything. I can create any keywords. I will do that for every single meeting. That way there's no muss, there's no fuss, and I am ready to go the minute that meeting starts. I open up, and the nice thing about it is I go back, and every time you hit that back button, you're right back to the calendar, and you're right back to your next meeting, and you're right back to your next note. And then if I do need to do something else, I have my quick access menu. Same over here. And you'll notice there's not a ton of difference in delay. So as a matter of fact, let's look at that real quick. If I pull on both of these, this is just slightly slower, and it could be partially me pulling down on it, but I don't think so. Yeah, this is just a little bit faster. But again, that's not a bad thing. So for the last part of this, I really want to just focus on this device. This is the OG for me. Now, I know there was a Linux version of an A5 and an A6. I didn't have those devices. This is what got me into e-ink. This is what got me excited about it. And I want to talk about this device because it is 6 years old. It's the same age as Remarkable 2 for the most part. And I don't know exactly when they came out, whether it was at the exact same time, but they were very close. And this took a totally different design by staying plastic like the original Remarkable One and like the new Remarkable Pure, but also that plastic screen. And I will tell you that if you can pick up one of these on the secondary market and you just want to try a Supernote, if it has the Feel Right 2 film, you're basically writing on the Manta. Now, it's not the same screen tech. It's not as responsive. It's 227 pixels per inch instead of 300. It is different. But what I'm saying is from an organizational standpoint and from a writing feel standpoint, you are not going to notice much of a difference at all if you have the same Feel Right 2 film on this device. You will be able to really put it through its paces and understand whether or not this is the right device for you. Plus, this idea of the mechanical rail here makes it very sturdy. But I absolutely love this device. 5 years in, I still pick it up. I still use it. I still bring it to work with me sometimes just because I like it that much. And again, you can sideload a few things, but you don't have to sideload much unless you have a specific use case for it. And even here, this is the ink hub, and I just installed this on this one. But you get all of the up-to-date software components. One thing about Supernote is they are constantly designing all the way back from the X series forward. So if you're on the Linux device, you are not getting these updates. And they've moved on. Now, they have talked about eventually maybe doing a dual boot environment with Linux, but I haven't heard about that for quite a while. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. But with this new plugin system, they're really trying to thread the needle between going full Google Play. They're not wanting to open up the ecosystem. They're being really intentional with what plugs directly into their system. And I think that's really cool. And I know I just said plug in and plugs into, but it really is that important because you saw the functionality. It went into the toolbar. It went into the UI. It's not a separate app. It's actually something meant to piggyback on the UI and UX elements. But like, for example, here you have InkHub and you can go in and see the shapes and decide whether you want to download that or not to yours. Whether it's stickers, they have custom templates. And I love how they give you little guides there to tell you what it does. But custom templates here, notes. So you could actually, if you were working on research, maybe in the future, they would have this so that you could share it with specific people. That would be phenomenal. Digest, you can share digest entries, quote carousels. You'll see if you're interested, my quote carousel is right here. And then you can also share atelier drawings. So a lot of artists out there who have different drawings, and you could take something and build on it. And what's really nice about all of this is you can provide the license. And so you can have different licensing options. And they explain what those licensing options are. It's really phenomenal. So why did I come to Supernote? I came to Supernote because I needed a paper replacement, but not just a paper replacement, something that took a digital notebook just a little bit further. Not all the way, not, as much as Books was providing at the time, but more than what Remarkable had at the time. So for me, I needed something where I could see my email. Very rarely do I send email from there, but I need to be able to see it. And I need to be able to see my at least primary calendar. Now, I hope they have multi-calendar support in the future, but not yet. And then I wanted to be able to read and I wanted to be able to annotate. And then later I found out once they released the new digest, I really need the digest. I didn't need it at the time, or at least I didn't think I did. And that's kind of the big thing about these devices is when I started, you had files, you had mail, you had calendar, and you had a digest, which wasn't super great. I mean, it wasn't bad. It just was not the really advanced research tool it is now. And then you had Kindle. Now with side loading of apps, with the to-dos, with the enhanced digest, with the plugin system on the way, with stickers, with insert text, it's just growing into a huge ecosystem on a device that you bought as one thing that automatically fit your needs. And then it grew with you and it made you see things and go, man, I can use that. That is really a special kind of thing. All right. So let's hop back on over. I'll give you some final thoughts and we will call this a wrap on 5 years with the Supernote. All right, everybody. So thanks for hanging in there. This has been a fun video to make. Hopefully it wasn't too rambling. Please go read the blog. I do a lot of detail in that. Also check out the live stream I did where I answered some questions, and maybe we'll do another one of those. But I just want to kind of tie this all together. So why did I pick the Supernote over all of the other devices that were out there? Well, I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of videos. I read a lot of articles, and I really wanted to figure out my specific use case. What was it for me that was most important? What was I trying to get out of a device like this? Because to me, something that cost as much as it did, which back then was about $450 all in with the folio and the pen and the device, and that was for the A5X. So that was for this device here. That was a lot of money. And if I hadn't have gotten a bonus and hadn't have had a specific need, I couldn't have justified that purchase. And I think a lot of people are in that boat of they need a device and they can really only afford to buy one. And so that's why when I talk about these devices, I talk about them as what's the best device for you and your use case. For me, that was the A5X. Hands down. Remarkable was real close. Books at the time was overkill. And I love some of the Books devices, especially the Note Max, and the Note Max is my favorite because of the fact that it's full-sized, and I'm really still holding out for that A4X2 to come out. But that being said, this device and now the Manta go with me everywhere. I don't leave home without one of those two devices because they're so crucial in my workflow. We haven't even gotten into things like Obsidian and all of that. That all came later. And the nice thing about these devices and Supernote is that if you decide it is the device for you, if you decide that the Supernote ecosystem is what you want and it functions the way you function and you purchase it, you will never be disappointed. And any features or performance improvements or things that they make in the future are only going to make the experience better. As I mentioned earlier, there were so many things that weren't there. There were already things when I bought mine. It had linking, had real-time recognition notes, had just come on board. So it had most of the early features. It had the lasso tool and the headings tool and all of that, keywords. But the digest wasn't super useful for me in its first iteration. Now they've made that to where it's seamless and so easy to use, and being able to use the app to then pull in information which didn't exist when I bought the device. So things that I didn't know I needed came on board later. And that is the mark of a company that's really trying to grow with their user base. And you really can't overstate this new plugin system and co-developing new things with your user base. That is huge, and nobody else is doing that. So it's really amazing. So let me answer one other question that I got. We talked about how I kind of set up my day and get things moving and the primary tools that I use. But which one of these devices would I recommend for an individual user who has gotten to that point and said, I know Supernote from a software perspective, from an organizational perspective, is right for me? If you're still on the fence a little, I would say try to find an aftermarket A5X, and primarily or possibly, if you can, the Feel-Right 2 screen film. Feel-Right 1 is great. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely love that one. But it's a little bit more spongy and a little bit more of a gel pen feel. I prefer Feel-Right 2, but they're both great. This one, however, if you're not 100%, let's say you're 80% there, Find one of these aftermarket. You won't be disappointed. This is 5 years old and the battery life is still phenomenal. And I used it hard until the Manta came out and still use it from time to time. You won't be disappointed with this at all. The Kindle, it'll work until it doesn't. Right now, on my device, so as of right now, on my device with the developer build installed on it, the Kindle app is working with my newest book that I purchased. So I would just say beware of that. If Kindle is a must-have, you don't want to go with this device. But if you're looking for note-taking and you're looking to really try out the ecosystem, look on Adopt a Supernote in Reddit and buy a used one from a reputable source. Look for it on eBay, and I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. Now, if you are primarily just taking notes, so say you don't need to mark up PDFs or you very rarely read PDFs, but you're just going to read your Kindle books and engage with Kindle and you're going to write notes. The Nomad is a phenomenal device for that. Absolutely brilliant. The reason it's so good is because it is so portable. Now, what's funny is it's not much lighter than the Manta, but it is super, super portable. I mean, being able to take this with you anywhere you want to go and have that just be a nice little book companion is great. And I find that I love taking notes on it. I love writing on it. And I love reading on it. What I don't love as much is the fact that I can't do a lot with PDFs. You can't write in the margins. You have to turn it into landscape to make it even kind of feel like it's a decent size. And I will say Supernote handles landscape very well with the way they do that, but it's still not if you're going to be marking up papers or reading things that are going to have you doing a bunch of scrolling and zooming because of just the size footprint. But absolutely, if you're journaling or if you are just taking notes all the time, this is a phenomenal device. Then what I would say is if you are 100% sure that you need all of the organizational tools that Supernote has to offer. You're not satisfied with one slider bar like you are on the A5X, and you need that extra screen real estate. This is the device for you. I would go out and buy this device tomorrow if I needed a dedicated note taker that I could also use to mark up PDFs, to read and mark up on EPUBs, and to really do all of the things for research that I do. And I think that again, it's all about your individual use case. 5 years in, I've never had a moment where I thought, hey, this device is better. And to be quite frank, as much as I love the Note Max and grading papers on it, it's actually in some ways easier and less friction to do that on the Manta because of the fact that if you turn the Manta into landscape, you get plenty of room to be able to notate in those margins and be able to write, and it exports with a blue ink. So for me, that just makes it an excellent all-around device. Now, it does cost more than some other e-ink devices. That's why I said that if you're unsure or you're not 100% sure, look for one of these on the secondary market. But if you are sure, it's money well spent. Because if you think about what you get, a pen that is this beautiful, or one here, like the Twin Safari, that actually is a pen and a ceramic nib, never having to buy nibs to replace them, modularity to be able to upgrade your system on chip and your battery, expandable storage. Those are premium features that you aren't getting on other devices. So the idea is that yes, you're paying more in the short term, but you get that value add later because the only thing that's going to really age, at least in the short term, is going to be the internal hardware components because it's got the latest Carta 1300 screen and it gets all of the updates across all of their devices. And no matter what you pick up, you're going to feel at home. You're not going to be in a different interface. So anyway, thank you all for indulging me in this. I know it's probably been a long video. I have not even begun editing yet. I thought about doing kind of a retrospective in some ways. I thought about doing kind of a retrospective and pulling in old clips from some of my first videos, but quite frankly, the lighting was very bad. And a lot of that information, not all of it, but some of that information is just outdated. I wanted to give you as up to date of a comparison and a look at these devices as I could. So would I buy the A5X again? Yes. If I had to go down to just the A5X tomorrow, would I be happy? Would it still fit all of my needs? Yes. Now, obviously the Manta is what I daily drive because it's more future proof, but the A5X is a phenomenal tablet. But anyway, thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and put my patrons up on the screen after the end of this video. Please, thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe. Feel free to buy me a digital book, which has been in the QR code up in the corner. Check me out over on Patreon. Check out the website. Read the blog. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This community works so well because of all of you, and I just really appreciate your time. And until next time, keep on moving forward, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.